Welcome to Gab Jam, episode 124.
All right. So what are we talking about today?
Today we are discussing the topic, how do you know when music is good?
Okay.
And I just want to give a little context. This is piggybacking on a discussion on Volume on Sirius XM Radio, where they were talking about should music be difficult in order for it to be good, and that they were talking about Fiona Apple's.
Explain what difficult means. Explain that.
So, they were discussing Fiona Apple's what do they call Fetch the Bolt Cutters album,
right?
And they were asking, I guess, a multiple meaning for difficult. They kind of reference things that are sonically difficult, so maybe like dissonance or something that is, a wall of sound or something like that. So that's difficult. So sonically difficult, ideologically difficult, something that's deep, introspective, or political. And then finally, something that is reactionary or just against the sound and the ideas of popular music or popular opinion.
So that doesn't really touch on musicians. So meaning that musicians, if you say difficult, that
Oh, I got you.
So you could be talking about music that's more complex, more complicated, as far as the degree of difficulty in being able to play it.
Yes.
So like Dream Theater or some of the prog rock bands that are out there, or or jazz or classical music or things like that, or even improvisational kind of jazz or bebop, because that's that was the whole thing about bebop. It is just on a whole different level with respect to the degree of difficulty of being able to play it.
And they expect that the audience is, if they're receptive to it, then that is the audience that resonates with that good music.
Exactly, because it was a lot more difficult to get into that as opposed to the jazz that came before, like the swing era type of thing, where you can get into it as a dancer and all that kind of stuff. Whereas
if you're doing Thelonious Monk or Charlie Parker, you have to
bebop was more like, hey, you gotta stop, I gotta listen to this, I have to be able to understand and comprehend exactly what's happening, how this guy is doing all these solos over all these different chord changes and all the rest of this kind of stuff. So it took a lot more heavier musicianship, a lot more gymnastics in order to navigate that. So that's one thing, and that could fit into those particular realms from the listener perspective. Meaning that it's going to be challenging to the listeners and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But just to kind of add that other clarity for musicians.
Oh wow, that's even another.
That's something that musicians may look at.
And the way they were talking about it is as from the listener standpoint, that they couldn't respect something. Well, on one hand, I think person indicated that they couldn't respect something unless it was more challenging, because I guess she talks, I'm also referring to the Amanda Palmer thing when she was talking about childbirth and all types and period cramps and things like that, and people were rejecting it, and she was saying, but this is all part of life, and my music has always been a part, just expressing. And so it might be challenging for some listeners, but it actually was just her expressing herself. So the question is that still considered good music if it challenges even the worldview of the fan that you had previously? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
It's kind of hard to say, because I do think that there is room for or need for music that doesn't do any of that. Just music that sounds good. It's just because at some level it's entertainment. It's meant to serve that aspect. But so I guess music as a cultural experience seems like it would tap into every single cultural aspect of life.
Oh, I like that.
And
so that there is music for every listener, and that maybe some listeners can do multiple types. And I guess that's
most people do. Most people do a myriad of things.
Yeah.
Even in the bebop era, there was still a certain amount of taking standards that had these melodies and rethinking those melodies. So again, there's, to me, there's room for all of it, because simplicity has to be there in order for the beboppers to even take it to another level.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's the same thing. Coltrane did my favorite things. And there's always room for that aspect to this whole different interpretation of stuff.
Especially what was that, a Tisket, a Tasket, or whatever with Duke Ellington, or was it Chick Webb? I don't know. Right. Whoever it was with Ella Fitzgerald.
That was Chick Webb. But that goes back to Charlie Parker. Is that Charlie Parker was known to listen to country and western.
Really?
So it's like he just completely, caught people by surprise by he throw in the jukebox and listen to country western. He loved the stories. So again, because it's a realistic. He's more than just a musician. He's a person. And so that there is a connection that can be made on all these different levels. So I think that's the hard part of trying to say that some music is not good, or like throwing away hip hop or throwing away that. And don't get me wrong. You can go through phases of anything, where you can say, I just don't like what they're doing in hip hop right now. But that might not be reflective of saying I hate hip hop music, or that it needs to be banished from the face of the earth. Same thing with rock or country or whatever it might be. It's just that sometimes for the listener, depending on how far you want to expand yourself culturally, will probably be how expansive your music collection is.
Or even what mood you find yourself in.
Right. But again, it's sort of like, I think if culturally you're a little bit more expansive in how you listen to stuff, kind of what you might go to, in those moods would be a little bit different. So I think there's a certain amount on the listener to say, hey, I want to educate myself as much as possible. It's like reading books, right? It's like you the more you read, the more you start taking in other stuff, the more expansive your reading palette becomes. And I think that's the same thing with music. It's like the more expansive your musical palette will become, the more you take in culturally.
Because that's what we ended up talking about with our daughter, was when we were talking about the Fetch the Bolt Cutter, she was like, that didn't sound that different to her.
Right.
Because she's so used to taking in so many different types of music.
Right.
And it made me, I know it piqued my interest for it, and it made me rush to go listen to it, and I have to agree that if you were a fan of Fiona Apple's previous albums, the ones that are more widely known, I don't see how this one is gonna skew your worldview as to what she offers. It's still fitting, and it's not even that much of a departure.
Right. From what she
for me.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is like depending on how deep your musical palette is. If you were like when alternative first started becoming alternative, like what we're talking about, when it was in its defining moments, and you would hear things like, from Primus to Prince to
on our local alternative station, they played it all, and it was
just everywhere.
It was nice.
Fiona Apple,
everything,
Tori Amos, so
Fishbone, they were doing it all. And all Prince,
it was ranging the gamut as far as what would be thrown into that soup. And so if you kind of have that broad of a palette to begin with, then
that's not
what you're doing on what Fiona Apple's doing on her new record won't strike you as much as different, like it's the same thing with Igor by Tyler the Creator. It's the same type of thing. It's like when you've kind of sifted through so much different type of hip hop, you know, it doesn't hit you as much as Strange.
Right. Now, I was about to say, after you heard Outkast and some of the other ones that preceded him,
right? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, there's already been kind of a roadmap for that.
Right. Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, you know, and so it doesn't hit your ear as different as much. Not to say that it's not any good. Now, and it's kind of going back to that other thing is that's why I just think you can't really define what good music is.
Okay.
Is that it's sort of like with bass players, you know, a long time ago, you know, who's the best bass player in the world? You know, is it, you know, when I was growing up, is it Stanley Clarke, is it Jocko?
Right.
You know, but if you listen to Stanley Clarke and Jocko, they just almost speak in completely different languages.
It's like apples and oranges.
Right. You know, I mean, it just
they're both fruit.
Approach, right.
But it's gotta, if you're in the mood for an apple, you may not be in the mood for an orange, or you might just want them together. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's like if you're looking for one vibe, you know, you're not gonna be looking for the other vibe. You know, and so
it doesn't. You can't really compare them, like you said.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, you know, it's like even with funk bass players, it's like to me there was a distinct difference between hearing like Larry Graham play and hearing Louis Johnson play. You know, as bass players, they just had completely different tones. You know, to the way that they approached the bass, even though they were both slapping and all the rest of that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, you know, one slap player is not the same. So that's why I think that it's hard to,
because it's too subjective.
It's way too subjective.
It's one man's trash, it's another man's trash.
Yeah.
And then I guess even from our years of experience, what I have found is that over the years, the things that I used to think I didn't like, my ears are just different as I get older and I experience more. There are things that I can appreciate now that I used to think were junk.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's stuff that I hated as a kid.
Right.
You know, like Al Green.
That's exactly what I was thinking, of course. Al Green, Barry White. I mean, the only person I always had a soft spot for was Isaac Hayes. I don't know what it was, but yeah, Curtis Mayfield, some of these people that I didn't probably appreciate as much as I should have.
Well, I like Curtis Mayfield, you know, because the Superfly thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm pushing that. So, okay. I'll get much better than that.
Okay. I think that's it. So what do you think? Does music have to be weird sounding, deep political, or overly complicated and structured for you to be able to appreciate it? What do you think? Does it make it good music or what?
Right.
Tell us in the comments below what's coming up next.
I don't know. What is coming up next?
Funk album's coming up next. Yes, funk album's coming up next. Hopefully in the next month and a half, we're gonna finish and get it up, get it out.
One more song needs to be done.
One more song needs to be done. We're working on that. And I think that's it for now.
I think that's it.
If you dig the vibe, be sure to
subscribe.
We're wishing you love, peace, and
chicken grease.
Yeah.